What would your parties do to help local businesses survive this recession, ensure businesses are ready to rebound when the economy picks up, and ultimately transform and strengthen the economy? Dr. Lim, your minute and a half starts now.
Thanks for the question. And at the Workers' Party, I think we believe strongly that the vibrancy of businesses actually rests in the small and medium enterprise sector. And so a lot of our proposals in our manifesto focus on elements of helping to uplift businesses in that sector. So one example is we are taking up the proposal of an export-import bank. Now, it's not a new proposal, but there's something that hasn't actually been rolled out. And we believe that ensuring that financing is made available to businesses, Singapore businesses, small and medium enterprises, for expansion into regional and global markets is central to helping these businesses also learn by doing and thereby raise their own productivity level. So we think that's one key initiative. Another one is just this idea that we also want to look out for the costs that these small and medium enterprises face. And one manifesto point that we have is just this idea of keeping commercial and industrial rent low. And the proposal that we have is to have a JTC kind of organization that come in and ensure that rental for these small and medium enterprises is actually going to be capped at a certain rate. Perhaps we would have to end up doing allocation by a non-market mechanism, such as a quota system or a ballot. But we believe that this is important to help contain costs.
Thank you very much. Dr. Chee, you have a minute and a half. The floor is now yours.
Sure. Dr. Balakrishnan brought up this whole idea of productivity. I just want to remind people that since 2003, we've had the Economic Review Committee and then the Economic Strategies Committee, and of late, the Committee for Future Economy. Now, with each of these economies, we see our productivity tanking in the last decade. And then last year, we had the lowest growth in a decade of our GDP growth of 0.7%. And jobs were lost. We have unemployment going on. Just before that, GE right now, you're telling Singaporeans that you want jobs, jobs, jobs. I think that's more an election jingle than a well thought out plan. What we need to do is really, number one, lower rental. You have the JTC, Singapore land supply controlled by JTCs and your maple trees, savannas, and so on and so forth, capital land. What we need to do is make sure that these rents are controlled. The other problem is your foreign workers levy. These are fees that businesses, small businesses, medium-sized businesses find it very hard to stomach. The third proposal that we've put up is to make sure that we have schemes like, for example, our retrenchment employment scheme, right? Retrenchment insurance scheme, and income to the our elderly people. When they have all this income, it helps them to go out and purchase things, and that helps stimulate our economy.
Thank you very much. Mr. Yuen, you have a minute and a half as well. Your time starts now.
Okay, I think the most important thing to look at really is the SME issues. The bigger company could weather the storm much better. The SME are the one. And Jamie and Dr. Chee has talked about the important aspect of keeping them alive. The SMEs are now in ICU, so to speak. The key cost driving factors are rental, labor costs, and cash flow, and the rest of all the fixed costs. Government is doing something to help them, yes, but how long can it last? The other thing that's very important is that they need to have the business to come back before they can survive. So if I'm a businessman, you can give me all the support now for the next 6 months. After the 6 months is up, if the business is not coming back, my business will go away. So we need to be able to create quickly help for them to reinvent their businesses, or if they know the business is not going to survive, they have to do something else. It's no point prolonging the pain. So it's like you're out of ICU, you have the resurgence policy to help them, to nurse them back to health. Getting out of ICU is not the end of it. Actually, not getting back to health is where we want the SMEs to survive. If they survive, the jobs survive. And in the longer term, to actually create an ecosystem for them, not allowing the GLC to compete with them, allowing them to actually go for government contract, not on the lowest cost basis, but on the basis of they can provide a service so that they can emerge to be a stronger company and grow into regional giants, maybe even like the Alibaba and the Google of the world with the R&D support.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yuen. Dr. Balakrishnan, you have the question. Your 4.5 minutes as well starts now.
Thank you. Let me set the context. Singapore will always be a tiny city-state. No natural resources. The only thing we have is the ingenuity, the hard work, the discipline of our people. And I can tell you also as the foreign minister, it is always a search to remain relevant and to be competitive in the world. Because we have nothing which is of inalienable value to the rest of the world. So that's one fundamental hard truth. I totally agree with the two of you. SMEs are crucial. They account for 70% of jobs, 50% of our GDP. And that's why, again, if you just stop for a moment and think about what we have done in the last few months, especially for SMEs, right? The job support scheme, it provided an opportunity, an avenue to keep these SMEs afloat. And why? Not just for their own sake, but in order to keep job opportunities available and open for our local Singaporeans. A very crucial point. I agree with you, and if you think about SMEs, what are their chief concerns? Cash flow, cost, credit. So again, let's look at the record and let's see what the government has done in the last few months. Just pay attention to this point. Corporate property tax rebates, not reliefs, rebates, real cash in their hands. Same thing, I've already mentioned the job support scheme. The rental waivers, between 2 to 5 months, certainly 5 months if you're a hawker, and then for the other tenants of JTC and all the other government agencies. Again, that is cash. You mentioned the foreign worker levy. There has been both a waiver and in fact a rebate for foreign workers because we know some of SMEs depend on these workers in order to keep their functions going.
It's a temporary measure.
We'll deal with that. Then we looked at credit facilities. And you know that the government has in fact taken on 90% of the risk in order to incentivize the financial institutions and banks to continue extending credit. And in fact, in just the last few months, several hundred, I think it's about $500 million have gone out because these credit risk sharing was available. So the point is, I recognize all that, we recognize all that, and the budget specifically addressed all this. But you've made another important point, which I agree with, which is you can't just keep on ICU. In the end, our companies, and especially our SMEs, do need to transform and we have to look at what future opportunities are. And here's the rub of it. Even before COVID, the digital revolution was underway. And one key thing is we need digital transformation throughout all the sectors of our economy. And I don't have time now to spell out all the measures which we put in place, but those of you who've been studying this will know we have supported this digital transformation. Not over yet, not over by a long way. Another point, if you look again in the future, there are growth opportunities. ICT, professional services, digital services, food manufacture, biomedical, healthcare, education. You know that these are opportunities of the future, and we again need to help our companies transform and get into these high growth fields. Think about it. What else do they need? The other point is skills. It's upgrading so that our workers, working for our SMEs, working for our, and not just SMEs, but also what we call LLEs, right? Large local enterprises. Mr. Yuen will be familiar with that. They are also part of our ecosystem. And that's why we've got the transformation and growth packages, so that not only can our SMEs target these new markets, new growth areas, but our workers are equipped with the skills for it. Now, one other point I want to make is that our position as a hub, as a city-state where trade is 3 times our GDP.
Your time's going to run out very soon.
We absolutely need to remain open and relevant.